Hello everybody, my name is Tauber999 and today I want to talk to you a little bit about a movie I saw recently called Skinamarink. And before I get started, I want to let you know that I recorded this whole thing without my microphone plugged in, so take two.
What an idiot!
Skinamarink is a 2022 Canadian experimental horror film written and directed by Kyle Edward Ball. And this movie is about two children who are at home alone when doors and windows start disappearing along with other spooky events and voices. Yeah, so since this is my first video, I can give you a little intro. My real name is Tyler O. Baker, and I myself am a horror author. I've published 2 novels along with a few short stories here and there. I do consider myself to be a writer, but what really makes me a writer is not the words that I write down, but my love for stories and talking about what makes them great in the first place. I guess let's get right into it. Just a heads up, I will be spoiling the crap out of this. You have been warned.
Spoiler alert.
Skinamarink takes place in 1995, and there are 2 children. There's Kevin, who's 4, and his sister Kaylee, who's 6. And Kevin injures himself in the night due to a sleepwalking episode, quote unquote. The dad takes him to the hospital and brings him back, and we find out through a phone call that he didn't need stitches, he just hit his head. Sometime later, the siblings wake up in the middle of the night, and they find that the father is gone, so they're home alone. And then we do see that the doors start disappearing, the windows start disappearing, other items like toys and stuff start disappearing. So the kids go downstairs, make themselves comfortable, get some cereal, get some toys, they just have a good time. And eventually a voice calls the older sister Kaylee from the darkness, telling her to come upstairs. And when she does go upstairs, Kevin stays back downstairs in the living room, and we see the dad, and he tells her to look under the bed, and she does, and there's nothing there. And she comes back up, and her mother's sitting on the opposite side of the bed, and she's not facing her. And she says that they love her and Kevin, and then she tells her to close her eyes. And then she disappears, and then she looks in the closet, and it's pitch black, and she hears her mother say to her, and from the closet she hears her mother calling out her name, and just these gross sounds of what sound like pain and breaking of bones. And Kaylee comes back down, and she's scared, and she decides to barricade the hallway, and Kevin goes to sleep. And when Kevin wakes up, he's all alone. Kaylee's gone now. The voice now calls out to Kevin, calling him down to the basement. And the voice says, Kaylee didn't do what I want, so I took her mouth away. He does see his sister, who no longer has eyes or a mouth. And when he goes back upstairs, he hears the voice calling him again and saying that it wants to play. And some of his toys begin to disappear. And a drawer opens in the kitchen, and the voice tells Kevin to put the knife in your eye. He puts the knife in his eyes. Kevin calls 911, and we hear the operator on the other line. And he says that he cut his head and he hurt himself, and he feels sick. He's talking to this person on the phone. He says that, there's someone here with me. The phone changes into the toy phone. The voice, says, I can do anything. And Kaylee didn't do what I wanted, and that's why I took her mouth away. She wanted her parents. And so Kevin goes upstairs, and he's holding a flashlight, and next thing you know, he's on the ceiling, and there's a whole pile of stuff. Backs out, and there's a big hallway. It reads 572 days all over the toys. We see a figure sitting on the side of the bed, and then she disappears. There's a big blood splatter on the floor, and it disappears and reappears, and then Kevin cries out, and there's a face in the darkness. It tells Kevin to go to sleep. Okay, I know that was kind of a lot, and it's kind of hard to summarize this movie because it's just a lot of static images. But let me just say, first off, this is all just my opinion. So if I'm going to get boned for my thoughts, I guess just please be gentle. I'll start off and I'll say what I thought the film did good. I will say the atmosphere had me uncomfortable like the whole time. As I was watching this movie, I didn't feel safe. There wasn't a time, there wasn't a break. Even in the beginning, which is normally like, wow, everything's so great, let's party, before, the crazy murder happens or whatever. This one just gets right into it, and that's one thing that I really like. I also think that the experimental aspects of the film, for the most part, paid off. So, as you may have noticed by now, for the entire movie, you don't see any faces. I mean, you see the back of Kevin, you see Kaylee without a face, and you see the face in the darkness, and that's about it. It's really minimal, and it adds to the strangeness of the situation, and it creates this very off-putting experience. And the doors and windows disappearing, all that adds to this type of claustrophobia. And I think that was done very well. A lot of people say that it reminded them of Blair Witch, which I guess I can agree with, but I believe that it gives more of a Five Nights at Freddy's vibe. And let me explain. In Blair Witch, we are there with the characters. We're in the camera. We're right up in them. We see their face. We see it from their perspective. That's the whole thing with Blair Witch. It's their perspective, and we're getting up close and personal. While this, on the other hand, it does have that same found footage vibe, but it's very detached, as if we're watching from security cameras, or we're watching from some other location that's not necessarily safe. We're distant, but we're still in this dark, twisted reality, just not necessarily right there with them. Maybe like in the next room or something. It was effective, but it wasn't quite Blair Witch. And I guess that's what I'll say for the good parts of this movie. So now onto the nitty gritty of it. While the atmosphere was very off-putting, it was kind of monotonous. I think that points of levity in horror movies are what actually juxtapose and create the terrifying ones. So, if the whole movie is so tense like this one was, there's really no tension. That is kind of the baseline emotion. We need to be brought up and we need to be brought back down so we can be brought back up. There needs to be that contrast to show the true danger of what our characters are actually in at that specific time. And that this movie just does not do that. The whole time, it's very weird and off-putting, but you kind of fall into the slump where, yeah, it's weird, okay. Following that same point, I said that the movie felt like it was all built up with no payoff. On the entire movie, I was waiting for that big moment, that big, maybe there's some answers or something, but I just didn't get it. It just kind of ended, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I wasn't really scared at all. I was kind of put off. I was like, oh, this is weird, but I wasn't really scared at any point during the movie. I also want to say that this movie is very vague, or some have argued online with me saying that the movie's actually about Kevin dying in a coma that he was in for 572 days due to a accident with a knife, which in theory would make sense, and I'm inclined to believe that is kind of what they were going for. But if that is what they're going for, why do we have all these weird things with the mom, where the daughter, she says, oh, I don't want to talk about mom, or there's hints to some kind of abuse that happens, and I don't know if it's meant to be that, the mom is the one that's doing this abuse, but then at the same time, it's why is the mom saying, oh, there's someone in here with me, and there's all this, all of her being beaten up or whatever in the closet. So it's not clear, and it doesn't leave enough breadcrumbs to arrive at a conclusion without some external research. Because if I didn't Google it, I'd be like, what the heck is going on? Like, this is so pointless. Like, yeah, I see some kid's feet, and I see the window, the window disappear. Okay, that's the whole movie. There are some creepy voices, which I think is done very well. It's just subtitled. It's just kind of this distorted garble where we don't really hear it, but they seem to understand it. I think that part is really well. I mean, besides that, it just kind of seems like a disjointed mess of static images with some spooky text in there. All in all, summarized in a single sentence, is it's a spooky atmospheric piece, but it tires quickly and it becomes repetitive. And the ending is just kind of underwhelming. I don't want to trash this movie. I think experimenting in cinema is how we get great cinema in the first place. I think some things work out great and change the way we view movies, like, when we move from silent pictures to full-on talkies, or how we went from black and white to color. With this experimentation, I think another very important part of it is the conclusion, discussing why it worked out or why it didn't. And, we don't need to be mean or hateful to honestly give this a critique, or give movies a critique. It's through honest critique that we can all get better. And I think my final words would be to the director and the writers. It was a great try. I don't think it quite hit the mark. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. A quick plug about myself, because, I need to get that money. Just kidding. But yeah, my books are available on Amazon. Please feel free to give either one a read. I have 2 books. I have The Cult of Carmine, which is my debut novel, and the second one is called Mothered Earth. And I have a third one coming out soon, which will be called The Devils You Let In, which I'm very proud of. I think it's the best I've ever written. But yeah, I don't want to make money. I don't want to be a millionaire. I just want to share stories. I want to talk about them. I want to discuss. So, if you feel inclined to read one of my books, leave me a review, good or bad. I would love to hear back from you. I guess thanks so much for your time, and I guess you guys all have a great night, and Godspeed.